Alright, it's time to continue the quest. Response video for Why Satellites Are a Joke. That's right, we're going to keep going with Flat Earth and Coffee and look at his video on Why Satellites Are a Joke. We're going to do mine on Why Your Satellites Are a Joke, Part 2. So, let's finish this up. Part 2, Why Your Satellites Are a Joke. I'm Jonni Glitch, on a quest for conspiracy nonsense. Alright, Part 2, we're going to start off with satellites in space are cartoons. Not sure what he means by that, but we'll take a look. Flat Earth and Coffee, away you go.
So all photos of satellites in space are cartoons. If you Google satellites in space, you'll see stuff like this. First off, I want to point out that we're led to believe that there are tens of thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth, but we've never seen them from any of the supposed ISS or any other footage we get from any other satellites. We never happen to catch a satellite in between whatever we're viewing from in Earth. But all these are cartoons, right? Go to GPS, go to Google yourself, type in satellites in space or real satellite, whatever search term you want, and just click on them. And they're all images. And you can see, obviously, they don't even, none of the dimensions match, right? Look at this, I don't know, I guess this is Earth, it's got a glowing...
Well, I'm not quite sure what he's trying to get at here, because of course they're cartoons. Technically they're not cartoons because they're graphic illustrations, to be more precise. Cartoons are Flintstones, man. Cartoons is SpongeBob SquarePants. Bugs, these are not cartoons. The least you can have is a little bit of respect for the people that create these things. They are accurate representations of the actual satellites when they are deployed in space. You're not going to see them deployed like that. I mean, what do you expect? You want NASA to send up a one-man rocket just to go up there and take a picture of a satellite? Just to prove it's there? You don't believe that because you think rockets go up and go in a circle and splash down immediately, and the rest is a production studio somewhere in a Hollywood basement. Hey, I know your agenda. But I'm trying to say here, in this case, let's bring it back up. Now the image in the upper left, that's the Soyuz capsule. Man, that's a real photograph. Look down here, little square satellite with an antenna deployed there. That's a real photograph. Next to it, the unfinished International Space Station. Real photograph. The big white one, fake. Gotcha. And the one next to that, that's probably fake as well. That might be real. I'd have to look at that one real close. The next one over, the full picture of the International Space Station, I'm pretty sure that one's real. And then look down there on the bottom row with the Earth and the machinery above it, which is the ISS again. That's a real photograph. Now, all the others are CGI. Absolutely. So, what's your point? I mean, I can't really get the gist of what you're talking about if everybody knows these are not real photos. They're CGI, yes. There are some of these in here are real. And they're pretty easy to spot. But other than trying to describe this, why don't I just show you what's going on?
About this time I thought that he should think twice about it, but Dale, go ahead and describe.
figured showing you would be better than me trying to describe everything to you. Okay, CGI'd images, so what? Ooh, here's one for you. Satelloons. Flat Earth and Coffee says we wouldn't need satelloons if satellites were real. Satelloons. You know, I actually had to look that word up. Satelloons. Because I was not familiar with that word. It's actually a word. I just called them satellite balloons. Satelloons it is. Flat Earth and Coffee, take it away.
We wouldn't need satelloons if satellites were real. So Project Echo was the first passive communication satellite experiment. Each of the two American spacecraft launched in 1960 and 1964 were metallized balloon satellites. So the first satellites were balloons. They were just helium balloons, and they.
First satellites were balloons. But just helium balloons?
Are you sure?
I don't think they were helium balloons. Let's take a look at Project Echo in a little bit more detail, shall we? As you can see here, looking at Project Echo, they actually deployed it into space on a rocket. Space on a rocket. Okay, it wasn't just any balloon. It had to get up to 1,000 miles. If it was full of helium, it would never reach 1,000 miles. It would get out of the atmosphere into the nothingness of space, and then it wouldn't do anything because helium relies on buoyancy. You know, lighter than air. There's no air in space, so it can't be lighter than anything. It wouldn't do anything. That is a big balloon. Project Echo was not filled with helium. The spacecraft was nicknamed a Satelloon by those involved in the project. It was used to redirect transcontinental and intercontinental telephone, radio, and television signals. So the word Satelloon originated right here with this one. So to inflate it, they had to use two types of gases. One was this one, anthraquinone, and benzoic acid. When combined and heated, it expanded at an extreme rate, which would inflate the entire balloon in mere seconds. Amazing. Yep. A balloon satellite known as a Satelloon. And it all came from right here. Wow. Now I learned something. Pretty cool. Okay, Flat Earth and Coffee isn't done yet. NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. That's a statement. It's actually a fact. NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. So, okay, let's play this and see what he's getting at here, because I'm not sure what he's trying to say. All right, go for it.
Talking more about Satelloons. So they can send these things up, they can manage which direction they go, they can make them do loops over certain areas. We can set up networks anywhere. There's no reason that can't provide GPS signaling as well. If a satellite can do it from space, there's no reason why we can't do it with a mesh network of Satelloons. So moving on to the next reason, NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. So this would only corroborate that NASA is actually using Satelloons. So who is the biggest helium consumer? NASA is the biggest consumer of helium, using annually almost 75 million cubic feet, followed by the USA Department of Defense. Interesting. So we're using NASA, followed by the US Department of Defense uses helium in the world. Here's a contract I found on NASA's website going back to 2014, and they awarded an agency-wide helium contract to two companies, Air Products and Chemicals Inc. of Allentown and Lind LLC of Murray Hill, New Jersey. And it was for 10.2 million liters of.
Okay, before he gets any further, he's still just working on a statement here that NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. There's really no secret to that. Unless he's trying to say, hey, look, here's proof that NASA uses helium in balloons and don't use satellites. I mean, he's not really coming out and saying that's his agenda. It's all biased, and to say that NASA does not use space satellites at all is, you have no backup to that. There's no basis for that. Yes, this is a known fact. NASA uses helium for their balloon projects. Yeah, NASA balloons are used to supplement or support space satellites. So they go up into the upper atmosphere and they can float around there for days. Yeah, they're pretty amazing. So balloons currently used by NASA balloon flight program are zero pressure and super pressure balloons. The super pressure balloons, turns out they're pretty massive, about the size of a football field. They say almost the size of a football stadium. I guess it depends on which stadium you're talking about. Yep, they exist, they're real. Satelloons, way to go. Now, none of this means that space satellites do not exist. Nothing says that. Space satellites do exist. They're still up there. Just because NASA is the largest user of helium, so what? They send up balloons, so what? That does not mean space satellites don't exist. There's no basis for that. And you know what? Here's something interesting. This is Flight Manifest for fiscal year 2025. You'll see November and December's up there from 2024, but it's interesting. That's at the McMurdo Station in Antarctica. Hey, so why would they go there in December? What's so special about December in Antarctica? Come on, you know what the special thing is in December. You know what it is. Come on. What is it? Everybody say it out loud. Okay, Flat Earth and Coffee. What else you got to enlighten us with? When you zoom out on Earth, it turns into a cartoon. Well, this should be good.
If I zoom out, this is all compositely put together, right? Let's just zoom out a little bit. Let's zoom out a little more. This is a cartoon, right? We can't.
Wait a minute. I was gonna let this run longer. I honestly thought he had something important to say. You are telling me that you believe Google Earth, when you zoom out, it turns into a cartoon. Do you honestly believe that someone declared Google Earth to be an actual photo of the globe that you can zoom in and out on and look at individual streets?
I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
I'm speechless. You actually thought Google Earth was an accurate representation of the globe in photographic form, or what? Some kind of 3D actual. You do realize Google Earth's just a. Here it is. Listen to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Google Earth is a web and computer program that renders a 3D representation of Earth based primarily on satellite imagery. The program maps the Earth by superimposing satellite images, aerial photography, and GIS data onto a 3D globe, allowing users to see cities and landscapes from various angles.
I'm shocked. I mean, I don't want to play this again.
I ain't the sharpest tool. I ain't the sharpest tool. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Okay, enough of that. All right.
There are GPS dead spots all over the world, and these can be experienced on land. They can be experienced in the ocean. Let's look at this. This is from Discovery Channel, and this is a very expensive ship with one of the most expensive GPS navigation systems. Listen to them say it themselves, again, right from Discovery Channel.
Parce que c'est faux ça en plus. Elle est plus la caille donc. Ouais.
The Boreal's navigation system is among the best in the world, but her GPS coordinates aren't adding up. Captain.
Well, I accidentally killed that somehow. Oh, crap.
Lemire has no choice but to literally chart his own course.
First of all, the charts are not so accurate, and we need to come back in the past and to don't trust too much all the computers and the digital charts, and especially GPS. GPS accuracy is 300 meters here. That's been 200 meters is a big deal.
All right, so not sure if you heard that, but GPS accuracy using one of the most expensive GPS navigation systems in the world is only good for 300 meters, which is closer to 900 feet, right? And that is, we were doing that in the 60s with Loran.
Okay, he's going to start going into the Loran system for some reason. That's nothing to do with GPS. But you can have the most expensive and all the equipment in the world. If you're not getting enough signals that receiver needs, yeah, they're going to be blind spots. Yeah, so you can have all the best equipment. If you got a blind spot, you got a blind spot. What can you do about it? Oh, wait. He must be saying since there's blind spots, GPS is fake. But he uses GPS anyway.
Probably actually are using Loran. I don't think personally, I don't think there is a such thing as GPS. So I've also experienced hour-long dead zones. This is me and my wife in Colorado. We experienced this in several states. For brevity's sake, I'm not going to play all the videos, but this is just one video on a clear day with very little clouds in the sky, a sunny day, no rain, wide open country. We're in Colorado, and we had no signal for roughly an hour.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about being out in the middle of nowhere, clear sky, whatever. You're out in the Colorado countryside, away from everything, and you're not getting a cell phone signal. Well, that might mean there are no cell phone towers anywhere near you. Maybe you're out of range of your entire network. Now, your phone does have a small GPS receiver in it, but even still, if it requires 4 satellites for a signal, and you're only getting 3, it's a dead spot. What are you going to do about it? Cell phone towers help you out. I don't know what else you're going to say here. Hold on a second.
Let's just play the video. All right, so we're driving through Colorado, and we've been waiting for GPS signal. So there's still no GPS signal. We haven't had it for about 15 minutes, and this is common.
I mean, you can see in the background, he's out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think there are any cell phone towers out there. Don't make me.
I ain't the shop.
I won't do it. You know what? It's going to be standing by. We're going to hear what he says.
When you're driving around in open country to lose GPS, there's no GPS signal here, and this has happened.
There's no signal.
Times than we can count.
Period.
Sometimes for an hour at a time. So anyone that thinks GPS signals all over the U.S., they are absolutely wrong.
Who says GPS is that reliable anyway? I'm got my finger over the button. I swear. The GPS function on your phone does receive signals from the GPS satellite, but if you're going to need 4 and don't get 4, you're going to have to be at dead spot. That's where the cell towers come in, because your providers use something called assisted GPS. Therefore, if you lose GPS signal, the last signal that your tower has for you, it will generate basically a shadow or a ghost GPS location until you receive enough satellites to keep the GPS going. So your provider assists GPS by providing you a background location image based on your last location. So yeah, you don't have a signal because you're not in range of your own towers.
Tool in the shed.
All right.
Loran was doing the job long before cartoon satellites, and for
There we go, cartoon satellites again. You mean they were doing the job long before cartoon satellite pictures? Is that what you're talking about?
for less. So if you're not familiar with Loran, Loran was developed, I think in the 50s. Yeah, the U.S. Navy began development of Loran. I think it was.
Yeah, Loran was developed right after World War II. Yeah, it's old technology, but it's very good technology. It still works.
They certainly had it. They took over, the Coast Guard took over operations of it in 1958. I'm not going to take all day and read all this. This just came from Wikipedia, Loran. But to summarize it, The first thing is that you should know is that satellites were first made by sci-fi writer Arthur C. Clarke, who also wrote a Space Odyssey. I can't remember the exact name of the.
Yeah, it's called 2001: A Space Odyssey. Just letting you know. Go for it.
Movie. But now that we know the history of satellites, let's dig into what they provide. The first bullet point was GPS. It turns out before there was space-based GPS, there was perfectly functioning global positioning system called Loran, which stood for Long Range Navigation.
Hold on there. Let me go back just a few seconds here. There. Let's read the top. If you can read that, I'll bring it big for you. There we go. Now that you know the history of satellites, history of satellites is not with Arthur C. Clarke. I mean, Arthur C. Clarke was probably the first one to use satellites in science fiction, at least an accurate representation of satellites in a movie. But now that we know the history of satellites, nothing to do with the history of satellites. Let's dig into what they provide. The first bullet point was GPS. Are you talking about satellites or Loran? It turns out before there was space-based GPS, there was a perfectly functioning global positioning system.
Are you sure?
Long-range navigation. I will bet you that this entire article says nothing about global positioning for Loran. Loran was not a global positioning system. It was a long-range system. They used a straight, wide beam that receivers would pick up, and the aircraft or ship would just follow the beam. As a matter of fact, a very interesting thing happened in World War II where the German Luftwaffe used a system like this, using two beams, to hone in on a point. Their receivers would pick up these two beams and just follow them to the target. That's why in Germany, there was a point where they were doing very accurate nighttime raids and the British couldn't figure it out. It's called the Battle of the Beams. Look it up. Loran is not GPS. Quit saying that.
What I call the 8,700 mile per hour mesh trilateration network, which is a mess. It is a problem. And the way GPS would work in space with satellites is you would have multiple satellites circling the Earth twice per day and at a height of 20,000 kilometers, and you would use trilateration, and it uses a rate times time, basically. So it's sending pings back, and it's using trilateration between these different nodes, right? The problem is, let me put it together for you here. Our GPS satellites geostationary, just to kind of recap what I said. They circle the Earth at an altitude of 20,000 kilometers or 13,000 miles, and they complete 2 full orbits a day. They are not in a geostationary orbit, meaning satellites are wrapping around the Earth, right? They're not even stationary. So how fast are they going? Well, there's multiple orbit calculators you can use. I checked it with several, but the one I went with was for the picture proof, so to speak, was Kaizen. And your flight velocity is 3.8, let's just round and say 3.9 kilometers per second. Okay, so what's that in miles per hour? Something we should all know. That's roughly 8,700 miles per hour. That's how fast this mesh network is wrapping around the supposed sphere of the Earth. 8,700 miles an hour. And you're trying to do trilateration with that, right? So first off, for that to even work,
He's really trying to wrap his head around this, isn't he? He seems to think these satellites are zipping all over the place. If you saw the article before this, it said they circled the globe twice per day. So that must mean it must take around 12 hours for it to go around one time. These satellites are 13,000 miles out, traveling at 8,700 miles per hour. Did you know that the International Space Station is only 248 miles above the Earth, and it's traveling at 17,900 miles per hour? And it goes around the world every 90 minutes. And you're worried about satellites out at 13,000 miles per hour? All right, let's try to make this as graphic and quick as possible. So I So what I'm going to do, okay, here's the globe. Let's say this is where the ISS is. At 200, it's probably not even that much. Okay? Now it takes 90 minutes for the ISS to go around that circle. Now let's look at one at 13,000 miles out. By the way, 13,000 miles out, it's going to have a radius of 16,960. 16,960 miles. There's your R. I'll make it a small. Make it R of 16,960. If you take 13,000 miles and add 3,960 for the radius of the Earth, so the center of the Earth, let me draw a line out. The center of the Earth going out to there is this. So there's your R of that big circle. 106,508 miles. That thing's zipping around, and I say zipping around, but it's going around here at 8,700 miles per hour. Is that it? Ugh. Those satellites are going around that giant circle with a circumference of 106,508 miles at 8,700 miles per hour. It's going to take roughly 12 and a half hours to go one circumference, to go around the world one time. So 8,700 miles is fast if you're on the Earth. It's massively fast. Matter of fact, 8,700 miles per hour is 2.4 miles per second. The ISS is traveling at around 5 miles per second. And if they ever get up to 7 miles per second, they would reach escape velocity and shoot out into space.
It's wrapping around the supposed sphere of the Earth. 8,700 miles an hour. And you're trying to do trilateration with that, right? So first off, for that to even work, if you talk to someone who does any type of development, right? Those
He said for that to even work. So now he's saying he's an engineer of the Global Positioning System satellite. For that to even work, you have no idea what you're talking about, but you're going to try to explain it anyway, aren't you? Okay, gotcha. Go ahead.
or satellites, whatever you want to call them, would have to not move an inch in between each other. They would have to be as if they were, you know, punched on the outside of a ball, right? Because how could, if I move my phone 6 inches, how does the mesh network not know what it was one of its nodes not moving 6 inches while it's zipping?
Now that is something. He honestly believes that the satellites are worried about where his phone position is.
I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Dude, GPS, all it does is send signals. It doesn't care where you're at, your phone's at, the most expensive GPS receiver in the world, it doesn't care where that's at. It doesn't care where ships are, it doesn't care where planes are, it doesn't care where cars are, it doesn't care where your Garmin is. All they do is constantly throw out a signal. It does not matter where your phone is. It does not matter if you move it 3 inches to the left or 3 inches to the right. It has nothing to do with that. Just look up how GPS works. You'll be fine. Wait. Let me fix something here. Hold on a second. Give me a minute. Throw that in there. Okay. Spout your nonsense, Flat Earth and Coffee.
Well, I can tell you that mesh network would have to be perfect. But even then, it would have problems because it's moving around the Earth. Really, it would only be non-problematic if that mesh network were geostationary. But even
there are 24 satellites in the GPS constellation. There are actually 31 satellites, but 24 operational at any one time. You're fine. There's going to be satellites over you.
even then, you couldn't tell me that you could have all these objects that don't move within 6 inches. I contend that GPS comes from the ground, and the reason we can have exact coordinates of something in space is because those nodes on the ground don't move at all. They're perfectly fixed on a flat stationary plane, right? If you think that would work on a mesh network that's freely moving around, doing 8,700 miles an hour, you've got some disconnects in your brain. So,
Woo! Just do a search for GPS and how it works, and then you'll know. Wow. Well, that's going to do it for part 2 of Why Satellites Are a Joke. And I did my best to explain why your satellites are a joke, and that goes straight to Flat Earth and coffee. I am done with this. If you haven't seen my part 1 yet, go check it out, because it's a little bit shorter than this one. This one went on longer because Flat Earth and Coffee's video is so long and it's hard to explain everything. Okay, I can't go any more into this. That's all I've got. Hey, check out part 1 if you haven't seen it yet. I'm Jonni Glitch, on a quest for conspiracy nonsense. See you around.